Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Lexa Peterson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Madeleine Edwards. We are honoured to acknowledge Air Marshal Leo Davies, retired, former Chief of Air Force and former member of the Council of the Australian War Memorial. We also warmly welcome the group from Bravery Trust, Veteran and Family Financial Support, and Squadron Leader Brock Bryce, retired, representing the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Lutheran School from Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, and Mary MacKillop College from Kensington, South Australia. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer David Arnold Barlow. David Barlow was born in the Adelaide suburb of Prospect on the 15th of November 1923, the son of Clarence and Edith Barlow. His father was a farmer who had enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on turning 21 in 1918, with the end of the First World War ending any chance of being deployed overseas. David was educated at St. Peter's College Preparatory School and was a keen athlete. In 1936, he won the school's Sports Day Cup. Later, he attended Roseworthy College and in 1942 received a diploma in agriculture. On the 18th of July, 1942, Barlow enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force, aged 18. He was trained as a pilot and at some point became engaged to Miss Eunice Stevenson, who was serving in the Women's Auxiliary Australian Air Force. Barlow embarked from Sydney for overseas service on the 25th of May, 1943, arriving in the United Kingdom in June. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners, and flight engineers who throughout the course of the war joined Royal Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. Months of training followed, and in June 1944, Barlow was commissioned as a pilot officer. The following month, he was posted to number 467 Squadron, RAAF. As part of Bomber Command, the squadron flew the four-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. Just before 11:30 p.m. on the night of the 20th of July, 1944, Barlow and his crew set off from Waddington, England, as part of a major raid on the railway centre of Courtrai in Belgium. Barlow was the pilot of Lancaster PO-E. Although the raid was a success, number 467 Squadron lost two crews. One of them was Flying Officer Barlow's. His aircraft failed to return to base and was later determined to have been hit by enemy fire. In the nearby village of Korskaki, witnesses saw the aircraft flying homewards around 2 a.m. on the 21st. It was in flames and crashed 3 kilometres from the village church. There were no survivors. Also on board were British Sergeant Leslie Arkis and Australian Flight Sergeants James Abraham, Edward Freeham, Maurice Jones, Jack Olson, and Robert Scott. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. Barlow's remains were identified and buried with his crewmates at Korskaki. He was reinterred there under the inscription, "For King and Country, ever remembered." A photograph was discovered in Barlow's personal effects, on the back of which he had written, "To thee, Eunice Margaret Stevenson, I leave my worldly possessions. God alone knows how much I love you." Flying Officer David Barlow's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, along with some 40,000 others from the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer David Arnold Barlow, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.